it'll automatically place you into a room. So let me just give a couple minutes for people to navigate that.
This is awesome, man. We're listening to a VP.
Oh, it's not that impressive. Thank you.
Ken has been around the block a few times. As you can tell, he's way, way older than I am. So, you know, we have that going for us.
I'm not quite as white as Bob, so I think Bob's got me. I couldn't pass for Santa.
The length comes easy, the white comes later.
Is everybody able to access that okay so far? Yeah. So the instruction, I just need you to click on that collaborate forum. It may ask you for your name and email address. That's strictly to identify yourself going in there. You're not going to get spammed. And then once you get in there, it should place you into a forum, and you don't need to do anything in there yet. Just sort of hang out. We're just getting it set up for later. Okay. All right. If anybody's having challenge with that, jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to continue here because I have some context to set before we head into that exercise. And and Steve, Brian's going to be getting you the data if you didn't see my text. So Brian's going to, as I'm talking, he's going to feed you the information you need. Okay.
Awesome. And Ken, can you repeat the instructions one more time?
Yeah, thank you.
I just need you to hit that collaborate.scaledagile link and enter a name, email address if it's asking you for that. If you're a Safe Community Platform user, enter your Safe Community Platform password. And then just enter the forum. That's all you need to do right now.
And I want to do a quick shout out to MTS. Just saw that you joined MTS. Good to see you, even though I can't see you.
Okay, everybody good for now?
It looks like it. I'm watching the chat.
All right. All right, so I'm going to set a little bit of context just to give you an overview of some safe lean portfolio management concepts. But then what I really am going to focus most of the session today around is this event called Participatory Budgeting that Scaled Agile has somewhat recently introduced into the framework. This actually has some real world applicability that I'll cover at the end as well. And for those of you that are familiar with Luke Holman and his work, this participatory budgeting is actually a riff off of the buyer feature innovation game that Luke also knows. So this is, or Luke invented, excuse me, not that he knows. That comes from Luke. So that's what participatory budgeting is. So I'm going to give you enough context around safe LPM so that this participatory budgeting exercise is meaningful and in context, okay? So please, interrupt me as I go if you have questions on some of the concepts. And the goal here is not to make you safe LPM experts. It's to give you the context enough so that you understand where participatory budgeting fits into the process. When you look at portfolio management within SAFE, there's really three different components of it. There's strategy and investment funding, there's Agile Portfolio Operations, and there's lean governance. And there's a variety of concepts within each one of those. When you think about it, traditional portfolio management functions, they have to do all of these. Essentially, they have to decide what are we going to invest in and what's our strategy around that investment. We're going to have to execute the work, which is where portfolio operations come in. And then we're going to have to apply some level of governance to that to make sure that we're actually measuring the results, we're doing it in the right way, and ensuring compliance. This is where we're going to get into budgeting and forecasting as well. So Steve, as new people join, you're probably going to have to refeed them the Collaborate link. Okay. Overall, what we're trying to do here is move from a traditional mindset where people are organized in functional silos and you're funding projects and project cost accounting, your annual big upfront planning processes, kind of, approving more work than you can actually ever achieve. Very detailed, task breakdown, business cases, very phase-gated governance type processes. And we're trying to move to a lean agile mindset of, being in stable, long-term value-based teams. Aligned to value streams. How does value flow to your clients? Really understanding how to control the amount of WIP that we have at the highest levels in the organization so that we can control how much work in progress we have at the lower levels. Having a much more lightweight process to decide what we're going to do at the strategy level than what has been there traditionally. So this is what the overall goal of LPM is. From a strategy and an investment funding perspective, we're collaborating with different roles that kind of live at the enterprise or portfolio level. Depending on what size enterprise you are, you may have multiple portfolios within one context. So you're going to be interfacing with enterprise executives to understand what your portfolio should be focused on. You're going to have portfolio executives or business owners that actually are responsible for that portfolio. And then you're going to have some technical guidance from an enterprise architect, for example, that could help start to figure out feasibility of some of these large initiatives, et cetera. What we're going to talk about, and this concept is going to play into our simulation later on, is the way that we connect what the enterprise wants to do versus what this specific portfolio within the enterprise wants to do is this concept in SAFe called a strategic theme. I always equate, and when everybody understands Scrum teams and teams working in 2-week sprints, producing value on a regular basis, many times instead of the teams talking about the actual work they're doing, they talk about their goal for a given sprint. What are your sprint goals? What are your outcomes you're trying to achieve for a sprint? Think of strategic themes as that same concept, but at the portfolio level. They are the outcomes that you're looking for from a given portfolio. So essentially, they're giving the portfolio purpose. Like, what are the objectives that we want you to establish? That's what a strategic theme is. So that strategic theme should start to influence the work that you're going to approve within the portfolio to achieve those themes. And so, for example, we want to appeal to a younger demographic for an e-commerce company in the range of 18 to 29. We want to reduce our warehousing costs by 35%. So you want to have these themes be the outcomes. And many times we even go farther and capture them in OKR, objective and key results format, so that you're saying, here's the outcome we want and here's how we're going to measure that outcome. So think of strategic themes as being the outcomes we're looking for. Then we go through, visioning at the portfolio level. We understand those themes. We think about where we want to go. Ultimately, at the highest level in the framework, you're identifying epics within SAFe. These are the large initiatives that could span, 6 months to a year and a half, ideally in that range. This is where we're going to decide what work we need to define to satisfy those strategic themes. What we're going to start talking about, though, is obviously in Agile, we want to decentralize decision-making as much as possible. We want to do that, but we have to have guardrails. One of the ways we're going to talk about having guardrails in place is we're going to move, I'm sure you've all heard in the industry now, Mick Kirsten's book From Task Top, the Projects to Product book, talking about how do we move from these, transient, not necessarily value-based projects to more long-term persistent products. This is what we're talking about here. So the model that Scaled Agile is suggesting is that rather than funding the actual work, here's $3 million to do this project, what we want to do is actually fund the people within the value streams. So here's a set of teams that are dedicated to delivering value for a certain value stream or a certain set of products over time. What we want to do is we want to fund those people for some period of time to do work. And then we're going to make sure that they're working on the most high priority things to work on. So this mindset of moving from project-based funding to value stream or people-based funding is pretty fundamental to this concept. And it's in this concept of moving to funding the actual people instead of funding the work that participatory budgeting is going to start to play into. Okay? So far, so good? All right, there's other guardrails we'll put in place, but we're really going to focus on that one about funding the value stream itself and funding the capacity within the value stream. Then to make sure we're getting them the most valuable work, we're going to take those epics that we envisioned in the couple slides ago that tie back to those strategic themes. And we're going to start going through a portfolio Kanban system to decide which of those actual epics are we going to start doing. Right? Just because somebody had the idea that we could do the epic doesn't mean we should do the epic. And so we're going to go through this process where eventually those business owners at the end of the analyzing state are going to make a go, no-go decision on whether or not we're actually going to start this epic and then head into this lean startup cycle where we're going to incrementally, start building our first MVP. We're going to see, did we actually prove out the value yet? Well, we're starting to get the value, so let's persevere until we decide at some point we're done, either because we're never going to achieve the value we thought we would, or we've achieved enough value that it's time to move on, right? So this is how we're going to approve the work that then those persistent teams are going to work on. All right, so that's at the strategy and investment funding level. We're funding the people, not funding the work, and we're bringing the work to the people instead of bringing the people to the work as we would have done traditionally as we staff projects over and over again, okay? Portfolio operations. This is where we're actually executing the work. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this. At the end of the day, these are agile teams working in sprints. There are Kanban teams working on their flow-based model. Depending on how familiar you are with SAFe, these are the team of teams construct in SAFe, the agile release train, working within that team of teams construct to get the work done flowing down from that portfolio level. Okay, you're coordinating across those release trains as you need to coordinate dependencies, but you're essentially executing the work. And you're using, Scrum Masters and release train engineers, which is an Uber Scrum Master that works at the team of teams level within SAFe to help facilitate and helping those teams and those release trains become high performing teams. The whole goal is you want these teams to become high performing and stay together so that they become predictable. They start to work well together. And that way, because you're funding them to exist for a period of time and operate, you no longer have to worry about forming them over and over again. You just have to worry about keeping them fed with the most important work for them to do. And that's where that portfolio Kanban system is continually flowing the next most set of important work down to these teams and release trains. All right, so that's portfolio operations. And so that an Agile PMO, Scrum Masters, RTEs, if you have a Lean Agile Center of Excellence in place that's helping drive the new processes out into the organization, these are all groups that will get involved to help facilitate the execution of the work. So far, so good. So we have a strategy. We have outcomes we're looking for in strategic themes. We define epics that capture the work. We send them through a portfolio Kanban system, and we have release trains and teams out there, ready to do the work. Now here's where we get into where participatory budgeting comes in, is in the governance space. Because we're funding those teams and trains to operate for a period of time, we can't do it forever. So we want to do it on a rolling wave basis. We want to look at how much funding we think they're going to need in the next budget cycle. Typically is suggested it's around a 6-month cycle, or if you're familiar with the program increment concept in SAFe, which is essentially the larger planning and execution time box that SAFe operates in, those are generally around a quarter. So if you think about this from a SAFe perspective, about every 2 PIs, you're at least revisiting the possibility to change funding for the next 2 PIs looking forward. Doesn't mean you will change it. It means that you're going to revisit that discussion and decide if any adjustments are necessary, okay? So this is what we're talking about. Whoops, sorry, hitting the enter too many times. So normally we're used to a mindset where you go through that annual planning cycle. I'm gonna approve a bunch of projects up front, and traditionally only a small percentage of those projects actually get implemented. And so instead we're gonna move to this model where I've got various value streams that have aligned teams and release trains to them. And I'm gonna apply a funding level that's persistent for up to 2 PIs. And then the next 2 PIs, I'm gonna revisit it. And notice on these PI boundaries, you have this participatory budgeting milestone here. So what that basically implies that what we're going to use to inform what the budget should be for the next funding cycle is this participatory budgeting exercise that we're going to go through. Okay, so we're using that process to help inform what those budgets should be per value stream for the next cycle. That's the purpose of participatory budgeting.
And
Yes.
this is Bob Apt. I just, with regards to that last statement, the value streams are obviously made up of maybe the release train or people, a set number of people. So isn't the amount of money you're going to spend on those value streams fairly well set by the number of people that you have? So it really is somewhat constant. It's just the work that might vary.
I'd say the people are the biggest cost factor, but if you look at the value stream, it could include everything. So there may be other things you spend money on.
Okay,
But this is also
software.
Yep. But this is also implying that the number of people that you may need to support that value stream may vary. So for example, if for example, it made sense, like if you look at this value stream, let's say that path to value for your customer, that there's a lot of work that needs to happen there for this time period. Well, looking forward, the amount of investment, think about these as investment categories. So the amount that you want to invest in that first value stream is going to go down. The amount you invest in the second value stream is going to go up. So what you may decide to do to accomplish that change, to your point that they're mainly people, you may decide to move some of the capacity, the teams and trains from this value stream down to this one, because you want to invest more of that capacity down here versus up there. True, you could temporarily reroute the work up here versus down here.
Right, okay.
This is just saying that you're anticipating this to be more of an ongoing situation where there's going to be value in aligning those people down here to this value stream and getting them spun up here, than if this was just a short, blurb that you were going to go through, or a short spike where you might better reroute work versus then move people. So that's what this is implying, is that you may end up, reallocating people between these. And my example of moving those teams and trains is the best scenario, but there may be some environments where this is contingent staffing that have certain skills, and you need different people down here with different skills. So this could play itself out in different ways, but think of this as how much you're willing to invest in each of these value streams for the next funding cycle. Okay. And so what you're doing is you're using this exercise to determine if you should adjust those budgets dynamically, and if so, what those adjustments should be. So you can see the visual here. We're going to simulate this visual virtually here in different breakout rooms, but you've got a bunch of people sitting at different tables. And in a nutshell, they're each going to go through the exact same exercise independent of each other in order to get a lot of different data points and input. Okay. So this is the environment we're going to simulate here in a minute, okay? I'm getting some background noise. If we could mute.
Right, pop on mute, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Ken, can I ask a question real quick?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm still struggling to, it feels like we're going backwards and we're funding projects again when we start talking about participatory budgeting. I'm all in for funding the value streams, and then, feed the value streams with what's the most, the highest priority, lowest impact, lowest effort epic. But when we start introducing the idea of participatory budgeting, where, it's essentially buy a feature, it feels like we're going backwards towards, funding projects. How do you kind of disassociate those two things?
Yeah, let me describe I felt the exact same way the first time I went through this. Let me explain the process, and then I'll answer your question at the end as to why it's not the same thing. Fair?
That's fair.
I won't make you go through the whole process. I just want you to let me explain it first, and then I'll answer your question before we head into the simulation, okay? So here's the way this process works. Heading into this event, I have a current budgetary level, okay? Coming out of it, I want possibly a different budgetary level. So the way I'm going to get to that is I'm going to essentially have a series of inputs, okay? I need to understand what I need to accomplish. So my strategic themes may have changed as far as what I want to accomplish in the next time period. I guarantee you people's strategic themes before and after COVID were probably very different, okay? So I've got new inputs about what I want to accomplish. Those new inputs have equated into some potential new work that I could do to achieve those themes. So that's one set of input. I had what I was previously planning to do as inputs, okay? And then here's another key input, the budget. I don't have infinite money to spend, okay? I do have some amount of budget that would be considered as to run the business, keep the lights on. People call that different names. What I decide to invest in to satisfy my themes is really a different discussion than what it takes to keep the current business running and operating as it is. So I'm gonna have this run the business budget that's sort of off the table, if you will, for this exercise, and I'm gonna be focusing on grow the business budget. How do I want to spend that discretionary money, if you will? That's what I'm focused on here. And so what this basically is focused on doing, and I think I'll just talk to it on this slide. The discussion the participants are going to have, and these participants, by the way, are going to be cross-functional across all these value streams. So in order for this to work well, you've got to have people at the table that could represent the interests of the different value streams and the customers and the value they support. Because then what you're going to have is you're going to have a discussion about this work relative to these objectives across these value streams, okay? And in the end, as a team, you're going to collectively decide that in order to accomplish these things, which is the value for the company overall across these value streams, what is the work that it would be most beneficial to do in order to achieve that, okay? That's the input you're doing here.
So,
now go ahead.
Yeah, so Ken, Joe again. You know, I've run this through with my current portfolio, and their sense was, you know, there were two things that I think we were struggling with. The first was, again, their feeling was they were coming out with, yeah, you know, how do we need to adjust the budget for each value stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want to move, reallocate our teams? Got it. And they also felt like they were coming out with a list of prioritized features or epics, right?
Yeah.
That, you know, were on the roadmap, and it never really took into account which of those epics would deliver the most value with the least amount of effort, right? So there was that missing step of, well, we haven't gone through, you know, prioritization using something like weighted shortest job first.
Mm-hmm.
And so it felt still very much like we were just approving those epics to go ahead and get done, and that they were almost committed epics because they were funded. And so we just couldn't get past that. You know, the portfolio team couldn't get past it. I couldn't even get past it as their coach.
Yeah, so the goal here is that directly out of this process, you're not going to get the final answer. What you're giving is, so there's a set of final stakeholders that are going to make that the ultimate decision. You're giving them input from a variety of people that says, here's the work. You're right, it's not taking the effort into account, but strictly from a value and meeting these objectives perspective, here's the work that everybody agrees is you know, very high value. There's no question. All the tables said these epics are at the top of the list. And also conversely, all the tables said these epics were at the bottom of the list, right? There's just lowest value. Then you've got the fuzzy middle, right? You got the fuzzy middle, and you're going to get different data points about the fuzzy middle. That's probably going to require more analysis and maybe a weighted shortest job first exercise after this exercise, right? You may not get the final answer just from this exercise.
So would you still recommend doing weighted shortest job first on all of the epics that made the cut? I mean, would you use this kind of as a kind of the first cut of, do we even want to put all of the epics through weighted shortest job first and only put through the ones that come through and
right. You probably would want to do a more detailed prioritization. What this is going to get you is from a bucket of dollars perspective across the different value streams. you're gonna get a lot more information about how you should allocate dollars, and then you're gonna get to the next level of detail after that. So this is just getting you to the first step of how do I want to fund these various streams. I'm gonna have to move money between them, and then I'm gonna go to the next level of detail after that. This does not replace doing that more detailed prioritization. This is a way to get a broad group of input from a lot of different people very quickly, because to have that many people participate in weighted shortest job first for epics would be a nightmare.
Okay.
Right? So this
Yeah.
is an exercise to have a quicker way to some budgetary numbers that you would then do weighted shortest job first with a smaller crew with all this input from all these broader audiences.
All right. Thank you.
This is just finding out what people can agree to spend money on. It's
All
that
right,
simple.
Bob, can you hang on a second? Hang on a second. Ken, we need everybody to join the collaborate links one more time. We're a few short, and I want to make sure everybody gets in there. So please go to this link here and make sure you have tried to join a table. We have, it appears we have 56 people who have joined the table, but we have 85 people online. So please join a table and let's see if you guys pop up. Bob, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just pointing out because I've actually gone through Luke Holman's course, very instructive about his engagement with the city of San Jose, where they got neighborhoods to actually vote how they wanted to spend their play money on budget items in the city budget that they knew they didn't have enough of to do everything. So they had the citizenry decide, and this is very much that.
Yes.
What can you get enough people to agree on we collectively as a group should do?
That's right. Yeah, and that was the real world example I alluded to at the beginning. I'm going to give you guys a video of that City of San Jose exercise so you can see how this came to life in the real world. That's exactly right. You're trying to get these people to make the right trade-offs to decide where should we spend our money. If it was your money to spend, which is the way this game is going to play out, where would you spend it, right? And this is where, some people at the end of that exercise, they walked in with some pet projects that they thought were must-haves. And once they understood and empathized with the other people in the city, they changed their mind, right? And what you're hoping is this same dynamic can happen here, that given the exposure to the other value streams and the articulation of the value that it can bring us globally, where would you spend your money? You may change your mind than what you walked in there with, okay? So that's the goal. Basically, the way this works is each of you at the table is going to get your own personal money to spend. We're going to take that grow the business budget and we're going to divide it up between all the people at your table. Okay. Then you're going to have a set of initiatives, right, epics, to be able to look at, and they are going to have a dollar value associated with them. And that's actually why, to me, it felt like we were funding the work to the question earlier, like, hey, we're still funding epics here. What's the deal? And I almost wish they would use points to represent capacity than dollars to represent money. Because essentially what you're saying is, what do you think we should spend our time on? Okay, that obviously does equate to money too. But it's much easier for you to wrap around the mindset of, I'm spending money for these epics and I'm quote unquote funding the epics. But really we're going to use that data to then decide how much money collectively that value stream could get based on all the work we expect that value stream to be doing. Okay, and it'll come a little bit more clear when I show you the epics we're going to work with. Was there a question?
Sorry, sir.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip.
So again,
That's online.
sorry.
I think someone was not muted. It was
Just background noise. Okay, great. All right, so you've got the inputs of the business context, those epics, the budget. You do your thing, and at the end, you've got some data to decide on the budgets and a set of epics that you may, you're going to still need to refine more, but you've at least got an agreed set and probably an agreed set to not do. Okay. So what's the value of this? It really helps make sure that we're getting a broader set of input from an audience that we might not get direct input from on this kind of stuff. Okay, the people you would bring into this are generally not the people that are going to get day-to-day interaction with the portfolio level stakeholders to weigh in. So you're getting all this valuable data to those stakeholders so that they can make the best possible decision. It's going to be more realistic than if you just had a top-down, version of this budget that didn't have the bottoms-up input to it. People just are going to feel better. If you watch that video and just see how people felt being able to be heard in this process, you're trying to get that same kind of mindset and that same kind of feeling within your enterprise, because some of these people will be like, I've never been able to be heard in this kind of forum like I am here, okay? And then you get buy-in because you're participating in the process, okay? So with that, let's go into start, where's mine? All right, so this is the handout that Steve gave you before. What we're going to be working in the context of, essentially it's a business that does, it's called Alice, or I'm sorry, Terrific Transport Corporation, TTC. And essentially they have autonomous vehicles that deliver various things autonomously, okay? The board has set a budget of $9 million for the next year. Really down here are the numbers we care about. The run the business budget is $5 million. The grow the business budget is $4 million. So, oops, I think I got my numbers wrong. So you're gonna have $5 million. I reversed them. So you're gonna have $5 million to spend instead of 4. So I switched these numbers. So essentially, pretend these two were switched. Grow the business budget's $5 million, but the amount of work in the backlog is $7,800,000. So we don't have enough budget to do all the work. Okay, so we're gonna have a gap. Whoops, strategic themes. We want to increase revenue for the new autonomous commercial vehicles by 300% in 18 months by improving value delivery capabilities, including image recognition system and rapid data analysis. We want to build and deploy the iNavigator app to improve the quality of sensors and edge detection capabilities to all autonomous public transportation vehicles by 85%, higher autonomous driving levels for 80% of public transportation vehicles, and build and integrate the world's largest interactive platform for intelligent delivery to speed up development of commercial and public transport, okay? So that's what we're trying to accomplish in this next budget cycle. So then what you have is you have 3 value streams. You have autonomous commercial vehicles, autonomous public transportation vehicles, and the cross-cutting efforts across the 2 of them. You can see each one has a name and a description along with their projected cost. So you can read each one of them. I'm not going to read them for you. You'll have this at your team so you can look through this. But if you look at it, we've got these 2 value streams, and then we got some cross-cutting ones that we could then understand how much of these would be done by each value stream. So what you're going to do, you're going to have that $5 million. So say you're going to have 8 people at your table. You're going to have that $5 million divided 8 ways on your table. Now you yourself, you'll have enough money yourself to fund some of these smaller epics. But when you get into some of the bigger ones, you won't have enough money in yourself to fund it. So what you're going to have to do is convince your table and get other people to go in on it with you. Hey, I think this is the most important one because X, Y, Z. Would you be willing to spend some of your money on that? So you've got to start convincing your table mates to spend their money on the stuff that you think is important.
Ken,
Okay.
quick question on this.
Yeah.
Or is it assumed that these epics are prioritized within each value stream?
I would say I would not make that assumption.
Okay.
Right? I think it's your job to prioritize them. You should look at these epics completely with these strategic themes in mind about what do you think is going to accomplish these themes the best out of all of those. Don't assume they're in priority order.
Okay, and one more time, could everybody join a table, the link, the collaborate link, and if your name on Zoom doesn't match your name on the collaborate link, I'm going to have a hard time connecting you to the right breakout room. So I apologize ahead of time.
If anybody that's not in the room, just stay here and we'll figure out where to put you.
Maybe.
Okay?
We'll try.
Yep, exactly. So let me, Get out of here, get out of presentation mode. So when you go into Collaborate, what you're going to basically end up seeing, I'll just go to one of these old ones that I was practicing on. You're going to see a view like this, where you'll have those epics along the left-hand side. You'll have you across the top and how much money you'll have to be able to spend. Okay. And you can see the cost of the epics. So you'll be able to put in the cells how much you're willing to spend to fund that epic. And so essentially you're going to type in numbers in your cells underneath your name until you've spent all your money. And at the end, you as a team will have funded or partially funded or not funded all of these epics based on the money you have to spend. So this is the exercise. You're going to talk to each other based on those themes and the descriptions of these epics that you have in your handout and decide which things you would fund, not fund, partially fund. Is the exercise clear?
Yes.
Okay. What you can do is as you're getting into it, if you have questions, you can, if you haven't been in Zoom breakout rooms before, you'll have the ability to call the host. So Steve, you'll ping Steve, he'll tell me, you know, such and such team needs some help and I'll come in and provide guidance.
And Dave Bourbon, I see you're here. Have you joined a Collaborate table? Okay, maybe not.
Okay, well, people can join in afterwards as well. So let's send you out to initial breakout. If there's people left over, we'll try to provision them into the right room quickly. And I'll go ahead and you know, I'll be able to monitor how things are going out there. We'll do this for about 15, 20 minutes and see how it's coming along. And then we'll see where we stand.
You can change the amount of money that you associate with any one of these epics at any time. So like you could put in 100,000 at one point and change that number after the fact, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
you can change your mind. You're not locked in as soon as you type in a number. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, does it make sense to allocate maybe half the money somewhere, or does it have to be the entire amount?
Well, that's what you have to decide as a team, right? If there's an epic that you think is really important, even if it's that one, like let's say it's this 1.5 million one, a pretty pricey one. If you think that is absolutely critical, you've got to get enough people willing to put money against that to fund the whole thing. If there's some that you think are less critical, you may only decide to fund partially that. So really, this is where you get to vote as an individual and convince your teammates, what do you think is the most important work on this list relative to our strategic themes that you would decide which work we should do.
Okay, and that's the key. It's just relative to the strategic themes because there's no value really
That's
estimated.
right. It's relative to those strategic themes, exactly. We're trying to, give as much autonomy to you on the team here to define value as you see it for this work. Now, granted, if we were in a real life, we would give you much more description and context on these epics than we have time to give you in this simulation. So obviously you're operating with limited information for this, but you can imagine if we were to give you a much deeper understanding of this work heading into it and give you a chance to ask questions in your context, you would have a much better view of the value of this in your mind to take into this, right? So we do the best we can with the small amount of time we have here. Okay. All right. Why don't we just jump in and try it, and if we need to adjust, we will adjust.
So I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
We're not physically going into breakout rooms. We're staying collectively together. Is that
No,
correct?
you are physically going into breakout rooms.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know that
Yeah,
part. Okay.
he had to. We had to wait and see what room you joined and collaborate first, so Steve could try to set up the breakout room. So yeah, we're going to send you out to breakout.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And I think I might miss a few people. There's a couple people I don't know. I can't tell by your Zoom name and match that with your breakout room or with your collaborate name. So if I miss you, please be patient. But all right, here we go. Ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's see what happens.
Looks
right,
like some
Steve,
people have started putting money in there already.
yeah, we've got a couple more people, Steve, as well, on table 9.
All right.
Hey,
Don't know how I can add additional people.
To breakout rooms,
Yeah.
you should just be able to click the person at the top. You should see unallocated people to rooms, and you should be able to click at the top or click on the room, and it should give you the ability to add them.
Clicking on the room does not.
Can you go to the person and say assign to at the person level that are unassigned to rooms?
Let me see who should be in a room with their team. Can anybody see what table they're on?
So
one that says Janet Polk or Jenny Cox. Do you need the forum number?
No, I think the Zoom. Who's in? Actually, you don't know the Zoom. Yeah, the forum. Yeah, the forum number would be good.
yeah, the last number on it should say either 1 through 9.
8. 48.
That's like next to July 22nd. Oh no, it's not going to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does show 8.
Yeah, yeah, you're if you're with Jenny, you're in room 8.
Yep.
Push him to 8.
However, you're at table 8. However, I can't seem to reassign you at this stage.
You can't find his name, Travis, and say assign to room. It doesn't let you do that.
He's right here. I can't send him to a room. Co-host, allow record, remove, report, put in waiting room. I don't want to do any of those things to you. I'm glad you're joining us.
I would make these people co-hosts and just let them go to the room. That will allow them to go into rooms.
That's okay. That's why you get paid the big bucks, Ken. I'm gonna make you guys co-hosts, okay? And then you can jump into whatever room you want, I hope.
I think you still have to put them into a room, and once they're in a room, they could jump to other rooms. You just got to tell them what room they need to end up in.
You need to, Travis, you need to be in room 8. And I don't believe I can't put anybody into any rooms right now.
So
Not
even
when
if you
rooms have started.
even if you click the breakout rooms thing at the bottom,
Yeah.
So you click that should pull up a list, and there should be a bunch of unassigned people.
There are not.
Not at the very top, really.
That's weird.
Oh,
Hey Steve, I think I've joined the room on my work laptop initially, but that was giving me problems, so I joined on the phone.